What type of wine aromas can you expect to perceive when tasting a glass of Syrah or Shiraz? I have prepared this short presentation to share with you the key flavor or aroma categories that you can expect to detect. Not saying that you must detect, but you can expect to detect when you smell or taste a glass of Syrah or Shiraz wine. And I will give you some perspective on how those aromas are coming from, and hopefully give you some hints on how you can train your nose to become more prepared to detect these aromas when you taste Syrah and Shiraz. All right, let's get going. So if we look at the wine aroma wheel, my favorite tool, uh, we can categorize Syrah or Shiraz wine aromas into three categories. Of course, the fruity categories where berries can be very predominant, as well as more dried fruit, spicy, and some green note more on the dry green side. So I will, in the next few slides, share some of the principal aromas that you are probably familiar, but sometimes maybe unfamiliar, so that you can get ready for your next tasting. All right, the first aroma category is dark berries. And when we describe dark berries, it's really about blackberry and blueberry. But when you take those fruits in your hands, they barely smell. You really have to crush them in your hand to start smelling, their typical aromas. And I would say that blueberries, the aroma is very faint. Usually, it becomes more prominent when you cook the blueberry, and then you can really appreciate the full aroma. And personally, that's the type of aroma of blueberry or blackberry that I will find in red wine, and particularly Syrah. In terms of the origin of the dark berry aromas, it's coming from the berries, from the grapes, so that's what the experts would qualify as primary aromas. In terms of the compounds that are responsible for these aromas, that are evoking these aromas for the chemists among you, we have this 1-ethyl acetate for blueberry and ethyl 2-hydroxy-4-methyl valerate for blackberry. Excuse my French accent. These are the two dominant compounds responsible for those dark berries aromas. We can find dark berries in other varietal wines, such as Pinot Noir, and a different compound will be responsible for this aroma, and that would be alpha ionone. Okay, let's move on to plum. Plum is obviously in the fruit category, in the tree fruit subcategory, and it evokes the smell of a ripe plum. But plum is a very, a delicate aroma to really fully detect in a red wine. The compound responsible for this note is the plum crotonate, and it can be found in the berries of various red wines, more so Merlot and Malbec. And I would say when I train people, when I lead tasting, sometimes they express, the perception of plum, but in fact what they mean is prune, the dried plum. So more the dried fruit aroma that is indeed typical of certain Syrah or Shiraz wine. So the prune is in the dried fruit category on the wine aroma wheel. Of course, it evokes the smell of a dried plum. And it's an aroma that is more typical of an aged wine. And, those compounds, gamma-nonalactone, beta-damascenone, and 3-methyl-2,4-nonadiones are compounds evoking a dried plum, a prune. Sometimes, at a high concentration, prunes are considered as a defect. However, many people consider that having this age character, add to the complexity of flavors, to the dimensionality of the flavors that you can perceive in a wine. And it's a typical um, aroma as well in other wine styles, such as Appassimento wine styles. Blackcurrant. That's one of my favorite wine aromas. I would tend to describe it as cassis, having lived in Burgundy for so many years, where cassis is part of the culture, where we add crème de cassis to aligoté wine to create a kir, but that's a story for another time. So blackcurrant is also an aroma that you can perceive in red wines and Shiraz. It's part of the fruity category, the berry subcategory. It evokes the aroma of blackcurrant or cassis. And those compounds are responsible for this aroma. They are also primary aromas. And I will try to pronounce those chemical names: mercaptomethyl pentanone and 3-mercaptohexyl acetate. Definitely the Cabernet is very present, but also you can find some of these blackcurrant slash cassis aromas in Syrah and Shiraz wine. And if you have no idea what a cassis aroma is, may I suggest that you try to find at the liquor store crème de cassis, because this processed fruit has really a typical cassis aroma. Cherry is also another aroma that you can expect in red wines, and Syrah and Shiraz in particular. More the black cherry. Of course, you can find other types of cherries. It's not limited to the dark cherry, but for Syrah and Shiraz, it's more expected for the black cherry. So it's a fruity aroma in the tree fruit category, and the compounds responsible for the cherry aroma, the compounds elicited this particular aroma that you can detect are benzaldehyde, which is also a compound that we can find in almond, in dried almond, but also ethyl cinnamate and 3-methyl butanoate. Ethyl cinnamate is also a compound that can also bring some spiciness into your perception. So that's the magic of wine aromas, is that depending on the equilibrium in the wine of these compounds, they can evoke different sensations, different notes to you.